Elijah was just getting off work, tired and worn out. His day had been long, filled with noise, endless tasks, and no breaks. All he wanted was to get home, sit down, and rest. He caught the usual crowded evening train, squeezing in with the rush of other commuters. By some stroke of luck, he found a seat, a rare moment of peace. But just as he settled in, the train made its next stop. An elderly woman slowly climbed aboard. She stood there, searching for a place to sit, but every seat was taken. People kept their heads down, focused on their phones, pretending not to notice her. Elijah saw her struggle. Without thinking twice, he stood up and offered his seat to the old woman. She hesitated at first, surprised by his kindness. In a city where most people looked out only for themselves, this was rare. But with a soft smile, she accepted and sat down. As the train neared Elijah's stop, the woman leaned toward him and pressed a small piece of paper into his hand. "You'll know when to use this," she said, her voice quiet but certain. Confused, Elijah stepped off the train, looking down at the folded paper. He opened it and read the words. "Remember the rooftop at 6 p.m. He stood there, wondering what it could possibly mean. Elijah couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about that note. Remember the rooftop at 6 p.m. What could it mean? He thought about it for days, carrying the note in his pocket, glancing at it whenever he had a quiet moment. He rode the train again the next day, hoping to see the old woman. Maybe she could explain. But she wasn't there. The same thing happened the next day, and the day after. There was no sign of her. The note stayed on his mind, growing heavier with each passing day. What rooftop? What was supposed to happen at 6 p.m.? His curiosity only grew stronger. He knew he had to find out. On his next day off, Elijah decided to follow the note's strange message. He arrived at the address written on the paper. It was an old, tall building tucked away on a quiet street. Not the kind of place you'd expect something important to happen. He climbed the narrow staircase to the rooftop, unsure of what to expect. As he reached the top, he stepped outside and was greeted by a cool breeze. The rooftop was empty, except for one man standing at the edge, gazing out at the city below. The man turned around when he heard Elijah's footsteps. He smiled warmly and introduced himself. "I've been waiting for you," the man said. The man on the rooftop introduced himself as William. Elijah felt uneasy but stayed calm. William explained that he was the brother of the elderly woman Elijah had helped on the train. "She told me what you did for her," William said. "You didn't think much of it, did you? But that simple act of kindness meant more to her than you could imagine." Elijah listened carefully, unsure of where this was going. "She's been watching people for a while now," William continued, "looking for someone who shows true kindness, someone who helps without expecting anything in return. She found that in you." Elijah was speechless. He hadn't done anything special, at least not in his eyes. William paused, then added, "My sister and I have spent years building businesses, properties and more. But we've reached a point where we can't manage it all anymore. We need someone we can trust, someone we know will take care of everything. And we believe that person is you." Elijah couldn't believe what he was hearing. This was too much. He barely knew these people, and now they were offering him something so big, so life-changing. "I don't understand," Elijah said. "Why me?" William smiled again. "Because you've already proven yourself. You did something most people wouldn't even consider. You acted from the heart." Elijah stood there, overwhelmed. This was more than he ever expected, and he didn't know how to respond. William's words echoed in Elijah's mind. An offer like this didn't come along often, if ever. Elijah had been working multiple jobs just to get by, and now, out of nowhere, he was being offered a chance to change his life completely. "The offer is simple," William said. "We need someone to manage our estate and oversee our businesses. It won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight, but the reward will be far greater than what you've been used to." Elijah felt a mix of emotions, shock, disbelief, and uncertainty. Could this really be happening? He had always dreamed of escaping the endless grind of low-paying jobs, but this offer felt too good to be true. What was the catch? Seeing the hesitation on Elijah's face, William added, "I know this is a lot to take in, and I'm not expecting an answer right now. Take some time to think about it. But just know, we chose you for a reason." Elijah nodded, still trying to process everything. He thanked William for the offer and left the rooftop with a whirlwind of thoughts racing through his mind. Over the next few days, Elijah couldn't focus on anything else. The offer replayed in his head over and over. Could he really leave his old life behind? Could he take on the responsibility of managing something so big? And what would his future look like if he said yes? After a few sleepless nights, Elijah made his decision. He couldn't ignore the opportunity any longer. He had to know where this path would take him. Elijah met with William again, this time with a clear answer. "I'll do it," he said, though there was still a hint of nervousness in his voice. William smiled. "Good choice, but remember, this won't be easy. There's a lot of work ahead of you, and not everyone is going to be on your side." Elijah was prepared for challenges, but he wasn't sure what William meant. "What do you mean by that?" Elijah asked. William's face turned serious. "The business isn't running as smoothly as it seems. There are people within our companies who aren't trustworthy. Some are stealing, and others are trying to take over what we've built. You'll have to root them out, but be careful. You'll need to earn their trust while keeping an eye on them." Elijah felt the weight of the responsibility growing. This wasn't just about managing properties. It was about saving them from those who wanted to tear it all down. The following weeks were a blur. Elijah started working alongside William, learning the ins and outs of the business. He handled the day-to-day operations and met employees, many of whom were suspicious of him. Elijah knew he had to tread carefully. One wrong move, and everything could fall apart. It wasn't long before he started noticing things, small, hidden details that didn't add up. Missing funds, suspicious transactions, employees whispering when they thought no one was looking. Elijah's instincts kicked in. This was more than just business trouble. Someone was trying to sabotage everything. Elijah's suspicions grew with every passing day. He quietly observed, keeping track of the small details that didn't sit right with him. Then one afternoon, as he was reviewing some paperwork, he found proof. One of the trusted managers had been siphoning money from the business for months. Elijah's heart sank. He had trusted this person, even started to build a working relationship with them. Now the betrayal stung deep. Elijah knew he couldn't let this slide, but confronting the situation wasn't going to be easy. He decided to act quickly but carefully. That evening he arranged a meeting with William. Elijah laid out all the evidence in front of him. William's face was grim. "I had my suspicions, but I didn't want to believe it," he said. "I know this must be hard for you, but you need to be the one to handle this." Elijah knew what he had to do, but it didn't make the task any easier. The next morning he called in the manager for a meeting. The room was tense. Elijah presented the proof, watching as the manager's face shifted from shock to anger. "I trusted you," Elijah said, keeping his voice calm but firm. "But you've been stealing from us." For a moment, the manager denied everything. Then, realizing there was no way out, they lashed out. "You don't know what you're doing here. You don't belong. You think you can just walk in and take control?" The words hit hard, but Elijah stood his ground. "I might be new, but I know what's right. You had a chance to fix things, but you made your choice." The confrontation ended with the manager leaving in disgrace. Elijah felt a mix of relief and sadness. It was a victory, but a painful one. With the manager gone, things at the company began to stabilize. Elijah's actions had saved the business from what could have been a complete disaster. Word spread quickly about how he had stepped up, and even those who doubted him before started to show respect. But just as Elijah thought things were settling down, another challenge came his way. One night, while going over some last-minute reports, he received a call from William. "There's been a break-in at one of the properties," William said, his voice tense. "We need you to go there now." Without hesitation, Elijah rushed to the location. When he arrived, he found the place in chaos. A masked intruder had broken in, but they were still inside. Elijah's heart raced as he carefully entered the building, not knowing what to expect. As he stepped inside, he saw the intruder attempting to take valuables from a locked cabinet. The figure turned around, shocked to see Elijah standing there. Without thinking, Elijah acted. His quick reflexes kicked in, and he managed to disarm the intruder. The two struggled briefly, but Elijah's strength and determination overpowered the intruder, who finally gave up and tried to flee. Just as the intruder reached for the window, Elijah grabbed hold of them, forcing them to the ground. The police arrived moments later and took control of the situation. Elijah stood there, breathless but relieved. He had acted on instinct, not thinking about the danger he put himself in. Once again, his ability to act selflessly and bravely had saved the day. The days that followed were quiet, but Elijah's mind was racing. He had faced challenges he never could have imagined, and through it all he had proven himself in ways he hadn't thought possible. One afternoon, William called Elijah to his office. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, his voice calm but serious. Elijah sat down, unsure of what was coming next. William paused, then looked him straight in the eye. "My sister and I made a decision. After everything you've done, the sacrifices, the hard work, we want to reward you." Elijah blinked, unsure of what William meant. "We're not just giving you a job. We want to make you a full partner in our businesses," William continued. "You've earned it, Elijah. This isn't just about what you've done for us. It's about the kind of person you are. Someone who steps up when others would back down. Someone who acts with kindness and courage even when no one is watching." Elijah was speechless. He had never expected anything like this. It was an opportunity that could change his life forever. William smiled. "And there's something else. My sister has left you the estate. It's yours now. She trusted you, and so do I." Elijah sat in silence, his mind racing with disbelief. The old woman's kindness, the chance encounter on the train, the mysterious note. It all led to this moment. A simple act of kindness had turned his life upside down in the best way possible. As he left William's office, Elijah reflected on everything that had happened. A few months ago, he had been struggling to make ends meet. Now he was a partner in a thriving business, with the security and stability he had always dreamed of. Standing on the rooftop once more, looking out over the city, Elijah thought back to the day he gave up his seat. It seemed like such a small thing at the time, but it had set in motion events that changed his life. Sometimes, it's the smallest acts of kindness that lead to the biggest rewards. Subscribe.